Welcome to the Inspection Empire Builder podcast. On this episode, we're talking with Joe Pacheco in Colorado about solo inspections. And welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today. On today's episode, we have Joe Pacheco from Colorado. Joe, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Matt. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing pretty good. I'm having a good day. It's glad to have you here today. What part of Colorado are you in?
I'm about 3 hours southwest of Denver, a little town called Salida.
Nice. How little is Salida?
The town's about 6,000.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's a smaller market for sure. How big of a market area do you serve?
I pretty much serve the entire state as far as residential, commercial. I can pretty much go anywhere.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. So I know you're a solo inspector, and as pretty much everybody who starts in the business, you start out as a solo inspector, and then some people decide to grow into teams, and other people stay solo and loving the life. I know that. I mean, we've had some conversations, over the past period of time. We were in Austin, Texas for the IEB men's retreat together. And it was good getting to know you there. But listening to your story and how you're running your business, it's super inspirational, man. And so I'm glad to have you here on the show today.
Be here.
Yeah, man. So tell me, how did you get into this? Why did you decide to become a home inspector?
Well, started doing construction remodeling back in the late 90s, and home inspectors had come on about that same time, a little bit after. Buddy and I looked into it and just kind of didn't really want to do both back in the day. And that was like in the infancy of home inspections. Kept doing remodeling, kept working at it. After almost 30 years of doing construction, just get a little tired. The bones get sore, knees get tired. So, what did I want to graduate into? Looked into home inspections, looked into taking classes for, to learn how to be an inspector, and really enjoyed the, digging deep into homes, knowing the different systems, knowing the electrical, knowing the plumbing, pouring foundations over the year, building full additions. So, had a lot of general knowledge of that. And then just really, it was a good segue into doing it, into actually doing the inspections. So,
yeah. So, yeah, I imagine your depth of experience on construction really helped you as an inspector getting launched into that area.
It did. It really did help. The company, then the guy that taught the class, I actually taught him a few things during the class.
Yeah.
So, and we've become friends over the years, and him and I are pretty good friends from learning back and forth.
That's excellent. So in the late 90s, you were doing construction. At what point did you decide to be a home inspector? Like, when did you say, all right, this is what I'm doing?
I came down to about 2015, 2016, started looking at other avenues and started looking at other ways to complement my business, to complement all that. And it just seemed like a good fit to move into the inspection industry and to move into that world.
Do you still do construction projects too?
Well, my wife and I today, we took out a wall in our laundry room to change it around. That's what I was doing this morning. So my honey-do list with my wife is a pretty big list. It's not small faucets and things like that. We took a wall out. So,
okay. Do you do construction for other people, or are you done with that?
Pretty much no. I'll get a call from a buyer, say, hey, can you come fix this or can you come fix that? A lot of times, it's small, simple things. So I'll, for my buyers, and it really helps with, to continue the business with home inspections. Hey, this guy's great. This guy will take care of you. He doesn't just disappear after the inspection report,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And if they need help, they become friends. A lot of my buyers have turned into good friends. So
that's really cool.
Borrow my tools, just different things like that. They ask for advice.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's really cool. So you cover the whole state. What's the furthest you've driven to do an inspection? Because Colorado's a good sized state.
Well, the furthest I've driven is Gallup, New Mexico.
Hey, I'm in New Mexico.
It was a commercial hunting property, about, what was it, about 16,000 acres and 10,000 square foot lodge. And the broker, who's out of Fort Collins, Colorado, asked me if I could go down there and do it. And as a commercial inspector, we're allowed to cross state lines.
Right, yeah, because residential is licensed, but commercial is not licensed.
That's correct.
Right, and that's really important to know. I mean, we do commercial as well, and it's, we have investors that we work with on the commercial side. We have a group of guys that actually do hotels, and so we've started doing some hotel inspections with them as they're buying and acquiring those properties, and so we've done some stuff in Colorado, in Utah, in Arizona. They're looking at some property in Florida right now, and so I'm like, heck yeah, I could go to Florida for work. That sounds fun.
Oh, I'll go down to Florida for a few days and inspect a hotel. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, right. Hopefully that hotel's on the beach. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, Florida's almost all beach. So
I know, right?
Hours of anywhere in Florida. I lived in Northeast Florida for about 10 years when I was in the service in the Navy.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a whole lot of beach in Florida.
Yeah, beautiful beaches too. And
love them.
Yep. And in fact, you and I are going to be at the IEB Unite conference, our annual conference in Florida. It's going to be in Orlando, which is, a little bit of a drive from the beach, but not too far.
Right. I went to flight school just north of Orlando, a little town called Sanford, as I learned how to become a commercial pilot. So.
Oh, that's great. Wow. Okay. So you're a home inspector, and you're a commercial pilot?
And I was a bush pilot in Alaska for a couple of years. Yeah. I've been around the block a few times. You look around my office, you can't see it in the picture, but I've got quite a few hats, and I've worn a lot of hats over the years.
Do you still have your pilot's license?
I do. A friend.
That's amazing. Do you fly often?
I have a friend who's from Chicago, and he comes to town. He bought a house here. And when he and his wife come here, he takes me flying all the time. So we have flown around the state. We'll go to different towns and go play drop-in hockey together.
That's so cool.
I still have my license, and I'm still able to fly.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that. Yeah, it's fun getting people on the show and being able to learn about all these different things people have. And so you're commercial pilot, you get your pilot's license. Did you ever fly professionally? Like you said, in Alaska, you were that's what you did for a living? I
did. I worked for United Airlines. I've worked for Continental Express at the old Stapleton Airport. And then when they closed that, I actually went to Alaska with just a whole bunch of phone numbers in my pocket and landed a job in Alaska, a company that doesn't even exist anymore. They've been gone since the mid 90s. So
that's cool. So flying planes, doing construction, and then now home inspection. So what are some of your favorite things about the home inspection industry? What do you like most about doing home inspections?
Believe it or not, it's meeting the people. It's meeting the buyers. It's seeing their excitement. I know a lot of inspectors really don't like when the buyers are there. I always tell my buyers, it's like, look, I don't charge you extra if you show up for the inspection, because it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's fun to see these short-term rental investors, and they're looking at this house and they see the whole forest when I see that one little pine cone, and that's my job. So, and I always tell them, my job is to play with the light switches. My job is to dig into cabinets, peek around, peek in the refrigerator, to play with the windows. That's my job. I get to run around the roof. I get to climb into crawl spaces.
Yeah, that's
sometimes
fun.
Get dirty. Sometimes get very dirty.
Yeah, right. There's some times you get real dirty. I always loved interacting with buyers, especially first-time home buyers. And I know they ask what could be potentially, I don't know, annoying questions maybe, but I've always loved it. And, and now I run a multi-inspector firm, and I'm not out in the field anymore doing inspections, but I miss the days of interacting with the buyers like that. I got great joy out of it and great pleasure out of it. I loved helping people. They're making decisions that are massive decisions, 6-figure, 7-figure financial decisions. And it's nice to be in a place where you can be a trusted voice and you can show them a perspective and an angle of the house that they wouldn't naturally look at. I think that's what I really like about the industry too, is is that you're helping somebody see a side of the house that they don't normally see. When someone's a home buyer, they're normally looking at this bedroom. Oh, this is where Johnny's going to sleep. This is where his bed's going to be. Will my couch fit in this room the right way? They're looking at how everything's going to lay out. And like, we're in the crawl space looking at the plumbing and going like, the fittings are, like, hey, this house has some galvanized piping that's deteriorating. And, you're able to get in there and look at things that they're not looking at and bring education and kind of teach them and show them. And you had to open up their eyes. And I just love the people side of that as well, man. That was like one of my favorite parts of it.
It's a great part. And, and you learn a lot from your buyers too. So, learn about where they're from, what they do for a living. And yeah, I ask a lot of questions also. So I'm always finding out about my buyers. And like I said, a lot of them, they turn into good friends.
That's really cool. Yeah. Well, and they ask, they trust us as inspectors. They trust us and our opinions, because we are more educated and more experienced in these areas than most people are in the planet, and it's one of our specialties is knowing how these things go together, and they'll ask us questions. They're like, can I take out this wall? Can I open up this wall? Will this work? And we're able to help them and be like, that looks like a load bearing wall. And you're going to need, yes, the answer is always yes. It's just how much money you're going to spend on doing it, right?
And get an engineer. And, that's my first response when they say, hey, I want to take this wall out. It's like, great. When we talk to an engineer, then, then it can be done. Different things like that. And speaking of engineers, I always get the engineer father-in-law or the engineer father who shows up at the inspection. And I have a great gadget, and I'm a gadget person. I'm gearhead gadgets. You should see my inspection kit. It's pretty loaded, but I carry this small little laser tape measure, and I gave it to this engineer dad. Didn't see him for the rest of the inspection. He took off with that thing and disappeared. So,
that's a great tactic.
Or they see my robot, they see my little basement crawler robot, and they're just enthralled. And then when I'm driving it around down in a crawl space, they're just, that gives the dad a lot of joy just to see things like that. All the toys we get to play with. And that's the other part of the inspections. We get a lot of toys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We have thermal cameras and drones where we're located in New Mexico. Most of the houses are a slab on grade, and there's not a lot of crawl spaces or basements where we're at, because we're further south. And that stuff's dependent on the frost line, like how deep they have to dig to pour footings determines whether or not they're going to see basements and crawl spaces. The deeper you have to dig, where they already dug the hole, like you're going to see more crawl space and basement action, and so, whereas here you don't have to dig as deep to pour those things. And so you don't see a lot of crawl spaces or basements here. And so, but you have a basement crawler robot. Do you use that on every crawl space, or is it just the tight ones that you use it for?
Both. There's some that I can climb around in. And sometimes I need to, climb over to see something. One I did a couple of weeks back. Yeah, I drove my robot around, but we had to climb over to see there was a spigot outside that had water leak on the outside. So we wanted to see if there was water leaking inside that foundation. So we dug through the insulation above the foundation and found that, yes, it was leaking inside the foundation. The buyer was in there with me in the crawl space.
Oh, wow.
Had him a flashlight, and off he went.
Wow.
So
that's an adventurous buyer.
I've got realtors down there with me.
Really? The realtors get in there?
I've got one lady realtor here in Salida. She absolutely does not have a problem in her real estate attire. Well, she won't do it in a skirt, but I'll tell you what, she will go down there if she's got pants on.
Wow.
She will climb in a crawl space with me. And her and I have been in some pretty tight crawl spaces together.
Wow.
Right in hand. And she's down there digging away. She's a great realtor. I'll tell you what.
That's really unusual. That's very unusual. So she enjoys that side of it and getting in there and getting like her hands on it.
She does. She really does.
Wow. That's really cool. I don't know if I don't know if I've ever experienced that. Really, like most of them want to just hang out in the kitchen and they're working on their laptop or talking with their buyers and stuff. I don't know if I've ever seen one go like, yeah, I want to get in the crawl space with you. That's cool.
I've had several lady buyers. I've had several of the husbands climb down in there with me.
I've had a couple clients. Yeah. Sometimes clients want to get in there, they want to, but we don't let them come with us in the attic. I don't know. Do you let them come in the attic with you?
No, the attic or the roof.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word too dangerous, but there's too much can go wrong.
I'm with you. Yeah.
If they take the wrong step or what have you, or in an attic, same thing. If they take the wrong step, they're going through the ceiling, and then we got a problem.
Right. So, yeah. We do the same thing. We don't let them go in the attic or on the roof for the same reasons. It's, there's too much liability that we'd be assuming at that point. But I've had buyers get in the crawl space with me. I've had some be like, I want to get in there. And I'm just like, well, let's go. I got an extra flashlight, and I got a jumpsuit, I've got like coveralls that, I was like, I've got coveralls. I said, you're going to get dirty. And they're like, that doesn't matter to me. I'm like, all right, let's go. So jump in and check it out, and it's kind of fun because they're like, wow, what's this? What's that? And I love seeing the excitement of the buyers when they're like, what is this? And they're all curious about what their house is made of. And I think it's great. I think that, they love to embrace that, and we get the opportunity to help them and teach them, it's,
exactly. And I mean, and that's half the fun is, we're educators. We're showing where the water shutoff is and how to use it with well systems. A lot of times the pressure tank and switch are in the crawl space. So you want to show them where those are at. You want to show it how it works, kind of explain to them a brief synopsis of, what their well system is like. So. Yeah.
And in Salida, I bet you encounter a lot more wells than you did in the middle of a city.
Yeah. I mean, most cities are, municipal water. But with the farm properties and mountain properties, they're all on well and septic. So
yeah, we have a little bit of well and septic here. The bulk of our activities happening in the Albuquerque metro area, Albuquerque, New Mexico. But when you get out in the fringe areas of the city, there's a certain area of this part of the city that isn't on city water or sewer, and so out in those areas, lots of wells and septic, and so we have to know what to do with those things.
Right. I mean, including my house, we're about a half mile from the city line, and we're on well and septic here at our house. So,
do you have natural gas or you have propane?
We actually have natural gas here.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. One of my inspectors lives pretty much off grid. He has 5 acres, a little like outside of the city, and so he has solar panels. He has electricity coming through solar. He's got a well, septic. He's got propane. His whole thing is essentially an off-grid living lifestyle out there. And he's an incredible inspector. And whenever we have mountain properties that are kind of off the beaten path, he's the guy that you want because he lives that lifestyle every day, And so for an inspector who's never lived with a well or septic, you can understand him, but there's a little bit more expertise when you actually live in that life and you're actually living on a well and a septic and understanding like, hey, this is the realities of what well and septic looks like living it. It's like with the septic, you got to take care of it. There's some maintenance you have to be doing. And I mean, I don't know how often do you have to have yours pumped? Is it about once a year?
About every 3 to 5 years. And It depends. It depends on the usage. If you've got a house with, 5 kids, and a lot of visitors, you're going to go through that a lot quicker. I just did a septic inspection for a realtor. It sends me a lot of inspections, and he called to have me go do a septic inspection, and we found that it was right at that limit, and it had only been 3 years. So
it was ready to get pumped.
It needed to be pumped again. So yeah.
So doing septic. So we don't do septic inspections. We have a lot of ancillary services that we do, and we're looking at what ancillaries we're going to add, and so septic was one we were considering. And so at our last a team meeting, I was like, hey, it's like we're looking at adding these different ancillary services, and we have a lot of requests for septic inspections, and I don't think I got the whole sentence out of my mouth. And one of the inspectors was like, hell no. I was like, what? He's like, boss, I really don't want to do septic inspections. And then all of a sudden, all of them are like, yeah, that's pretty gross. I don't think I want to do that either. And so, at the time, I think we had 3 inspectors. And so it was like a consensus among the crowd, amongst the team of like, we don't want to do septic inspections. That sounds gross. And I was like, fair enough, so it's like, we don't have to do them, and so we do pretty much everything else, but we don't do septic.
I rarely do a septic inspection. I mean, mostly it's sewer scopes.
Yep, we do a lot of sewer scopes.
I do a lot of sewer scopes. I just upgraded this past year with a new scope.
What kind of scope do you using?
The Viking.
Okay. So we were using the inspectorcameras.com's cameras for a while, and I think they're a great option, but we were doing such high volume of sewer scoping that they're a great camera. There's nothing wrong with them, but because, our guys they're doing on average 2 a day, 2 scopes a day with that camera system. And that is just really not designed for that level of volume. And so we were, battling repairs and stuff like that. And so we ended up stepping up and upgrading our equipment. We're in the middle of our upgrades right now. So as cameras are basically every month or two, I'm buying a group of cameras. And so we're doing the MetroTech cameras.
Okay.
And yeah, so we're doing the MetroTech cameras. We're really happy with those ones. They seem to be like really, really working well for us. They're a thicker push rod. So it's a heavier duty push rod. So you can get a little more oomph on it when you're pushing.
And that was what I found with this upgraded camera, that the cable is a lot stiffer.
Yeah.
And to pass debris, get around some corners at the old one, you were stuck. You were done.
That was it. The other ones we had too, they would get stuck at points. And so you had to really finesse it. But then what would happen is, as my guys are trying to make it get around that corner or giving that extra little twist and push to get it there, things would start breaking because we're just trying to push it harder than maybe it was designed for. And again, great camera quality. The picture was super clear. It was more affordable. If you're adding sewer scoping to your, resume as an ancillary, it's probably a great camera system to get started with and to get it started making money. You can turn a profit on those real fast, which is great. And now we're
probably doing 8 out of 10 inspections with the sewer scope.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe 1 out of 50 with the septic. And it's usually, the way the contracts are written, the seller is responsible for the septic system. I only do it if they don't get it inspected or if that septic company doesn't inspect it. Then I'll jump in and say, hey, look, I'll take care of it. I don't carry that equipment with me, so I'd have to make a an appointment to go back. Rarely, but, I get some realtors that say, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you go take care of this for me? And for some realtors, you betcha, I'm going to jump in there and help them out. They send me a lot of good inspections. So. Yep.
We have those too. We have our A-list realtors that we know when they ask us for favors, and it's like they send us enough work that it's like, how can we make this happen? We'll readjust our schedules. We'll figure out how to make it work. And whereas, the realtor we've never worked with before is asking for a favor, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, we try, but it's just, we don't move heaven and earth, and
if I've got time in my schedule, I'll, see what I can do for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's true. I think it's funny. I think the inspection industry and real estate in general is very relational. It's a very relational business, especially where I'm living. It's like people have like the inspectors that they like to use. They have the mortgage people they like to work with. They have the title companies. People have their relationships with the different people in the industry, and they know, okay, these are the people I like to assemble their team of trusted experts. And so when you recognize the relational side of it and you build that relationship stronger and stronger, you end up getting more business out of that.
That's all part of the sales aspect of this business,
which
I have been doing for a lot of years, up to the construction aspect and all that. You're still having to sell a product. The product is that company, not necessarily kitchens or cabinets or things like that. So when I walk into a realtor's office, I'm selling myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that a lot of sales experience comes from that. And,
where do you find your business mostly? Like how do you normally get inspections?
Well, Google is a great resource.
Okay.
And then just knocking on the door, shaking hands, meeting realtors, doing, good inspections for them, taking good care of their buyers, of their clients.
Yeah.
And, and word of mouth, a lot of word of mouth.
That's
with
good.
The Airbnb company that I do a lot of inspections for. They called me off Google and I went and took care of their managing broker. The owner, she called me. She said, hey, come look at this $8 million luxury Airbnb property. That was a fun inspection.
I bet.
And a year later, same buyer, because the sellers backed out, same buyer called me a year later saying, "Hey, Joe, can you re-inspect that property in Breckenridge for me?" I'm like, "Sure, let's go do it." He shows up. We had a good day. His wife and kids were there. We had a lot of fun on this second inspection for the same guy. And the
Second inspection on the same address.
Same house, same address. Same
so you went and did the inspection, they backed out, and then a year later they renegotiated, got back under contract, and you did another inspection.
Right. The seller backed out the first time.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That happens. And a year later, I mean, a lot can change. You don't, you have a whole cycle of spring, summer, winter happening, so things on the roof could change, conditions could change, and all kinds of things in the house. So yeah, I mean, a year later, a lot can happen.
Yes. And I tell my buyers, a lot can happen in 2 weeks, let alone a year. And with the weather and with the huge swings in weather that we get here, the huge swings, and you get the same thing in New Mexico with snow. And then, first thing in the morning, it's 16 degrees. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 70 degrees.
Yeah. And that's a reality here. And so you look at like building products, exterior building products with that kind of temperature swing every single day in the wintertime, especially, it's the expansion and contraction of roofing materials, siding materials, things that are going to go through that. Like it's a lot can change. A lot can change quickly. Yeah.
And it's like with water damage. And if there's, the house doesn't have gutters or the house has leaky gutters or something, and they're, running water down the foundation and they're doing underpinning on the foundation, that can happen very quickly. And you try to educate the buyers and sellers sometimes on, on the seriousness of water damage. And what it can do.
Absolutely. And that's something that whenever I'm talking with buyers too, and I always explain like, hey, the exterior of your home is primarily about managing water. Your roof is managing the water to get it off. Your siding is keeping the water out. Your grading is keeping it going away. The exterior of your house, everything we're looking at, the number one damage thing that we're looking for is water. And you want to make sure everything is set up so that it's managing the water on the exterior home the right way. And water can cause so much damage so quickly. So you have to be really vigilant about, are your gutters clean? Is the water getting off the roofing system the right way? Is it getting when it comes down to the ground, is it getting away from the house? If you guys decide that you want to do some landscaping out here, you got to make sure you're thinking about water flow, because you could come in here and think, oh, I'm going to put this little planter bed right here, but you build it up and all of a sudden water's coming back towards the house again. You created a big problem.
Yep.
And Absolutely. You won't know it until a lot of damage has happened. Yeah. A lot of times. Yeah. Or all of a sudden, like if water flow is it causes all kinds of problems. And so, that's kind of a big picture item. But when you have the expansion and contraction of the temperature swings that we have in New Mexico and Colorado like that, stuff can expand and contract. You can have a crack in a stucco, have a big change in just a few weeks, especially during the winter.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I always tell people water damage, water is extremely destructible. Look at the Grand Canyon. Look at what water did there. So
right.
That's a big for instance, but yeah, I mean, water is extremely destructive. So that's what our job is, to, find these issues before they become expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes there's an ongoing issue that has caused a big deal, and you don't see it until you really start diving deep, and you go, oh, yes, you need to redirect the water on the grading. Now you got to rework the dirt or rework your gutter system to get the water away. But on top of that, you also need to now repair all this damage that the water's been causing. And that can add up real fast. And it's stuff that's like in the crawl space that you don't ever see. And I think that's like the most annoying thing to me whenever like I'm doing a home project around the house. When you put a new roof on your house, it's super expensive. Let's say you spend 20 or 30 grand on a roof on your house, you get the whole thing redone. You have some friends over, you're like, check it out, I got a new roof, and they're like, yeah, I don't really care, but they just don't, right? But you spend 20 or 30 grand in the kitchen and you're like, check out, I remodeled my kitchen with new cabinets and counters and appliances. Everybody's like, ooh, it's so beautiful. I love this. I love that, and so it's hard to spend 30 grand on fixing the foundation and fixing roofing or fixing, things that you don't really see that often. And it's like, the same with like replacing air conditioning systems and things like that. You're like, you don't want to spend, like, it's just not fun to spend big money on things that aren't pretty.
as a contractor, I did a job on the Front Range where we had to put pilings, basically a big giant drill to shore up the foundation because there was cracking in the roof and the whole front of this house was falling off.
Wow.
And there was like 16 piers around the outside of the foundation around this house. And it pulled it back up about 6 inches.
Wow. Yeah. So like those helical piers, is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah. And those ones, like, it's like a giant screw blade and with a shaft on it, right? And you have like a hydraulic press drill system that's like drilling it down. Is that what you were doing?
Yes. And then it kept that bottom of the foundation. And as they drill it down and it presses it up, it moves it up.
Right.
So, and then it stabilizes everything. So you can repair the damage that caused. And what usually causes that? Water.
Yep. Yeah. Water settles in around the foundation, causes all that. The house, I bought a new house this past year, about a year ago, I bought a house. And as I was inspecting it, I saw there were some foundation issues and pretty minor, like very minor, but I saw a little foundation issues. And so, I went back and asked the seller about it, and they had done some repairs. And so I got to have the conversation of like, hey, what happened? What caused this? What kind of repairs? And when did you make those repairs? Because if they made those repairs 3 months ago, or did they make those repairs, whatever. In this case, they had done the repairs 20 years ago. And so she was like, there was an issue. It was a water issue, of course. And there was the main water line from the house was leaking under the slab, under the house. And they didn't catch it for a while. And by the time they caught it, that caused some damage. And the house sunk in this one area where the water had been leaking. And so then they came in and made the repairs. And so they're like, yeah, we made these repairs 20 years ago. And so for me, I was like, got it. So the repairs were made 20 years ago. There's been no more damage since then. You can tell that there has been no more movement since. And so you're like, okay, like this is a settled foundation, not a settling foundation. And there's a big difference.
No recent movement. And that's part of our job, is to look for that recent movement.
Yep, that's it. And you want to know, like, and when you see a foundation. So for me, it's like, I felt very comfortable. Y'all made repairs. They explained the repairs. They showed me what they did to the repairs. And I was like, okay, you made those repairs 20 years ago. The house isn't moving anymore. Those repairs are satisfactory for me as a buyer. And so I felt very comfortable just buying the house as is without anything else. But it's funny how I think with us helping with buyers, right? Buyers freak out over things like that. And not all of them, but some buyers will really freak out. Oh my God, the foundation's messed up. I really don't want this house. But able to go, hey, listen, they put in the helical piers. They braced it up. They shored it up, and they did it 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And there's no more movement. So it was a repair. It has been repaired, and it's settled. It's not settling. And there's a big difference between something happened 20 years ago versus it's currently actively happening.
Exactly. And and that's part of our job, is to, assure that buyer that, this issue was 20 years ago. This is not a recent movement. This is not recent damage.
Right.
And that's part of our jobs as inspectors, is to realize to, continually take education and look at these things so we can educate our buyers and not scare them.
Right.
Because now they're scared. You see something or they see something and you tell them, well, hey, look, this is not recent movement. And this is why. Right. So, yeah. Or like big V cracks. You want to, you see a big V crack in a foundation. That's, a lot of times that's catastrophic. Or step cracking in cinder block foundations.
Yep.
And, that wall's bowing in. Yeah, that's catastrophic. Then you tell the buyers, hey, look, this is what this is. You need to be evaluated by an engineer. Let's see what the engineer says.
Yep. Yeah. And, I'm a big fan of stories and illustrations to try to help people understand those things. And one of the things one of my illustrations I use a lot is, hey, I'm the general practitioner and I'm looking at the whole body, and if you went to your doctor on an annual physical and they said, hey, something's a little bit off with your heart, what are they going to tell you to do? They're going to tell you to go to the cardiologist to dive deeper to make sure, like, we need a heart specialist to look at your heart, but I can see something's off with it. It's like, I'm the general practitioner. I'm looking at the entire house. Today I found something in the electrical. We need to get a specialist in to dive deeper to get to the root of it. But, and that's like one of my illustrations I like to use. it helps people understand like, okay, this is their role. So I need an engineer now to dive deeper into this foundation, an electrician dive deeper into this situation. Here's what I'm seeing in your plumbing. You got a plumbing issue or your sewer line issue. Here's what I'm seeing. You need to get a sewer line repair contractor out here to give you an estimate and a quote and understand like what the repairs would take. Because a lot of times they want us to say, well, how much do you think that's going to cost? Or how should we fix this? And well, there's a couple ways to fix this, and I always
I try not to give suggestions.
Right. Me too.
I mean, that just traps you into a corner and then they think you're the expert.
Yeah.
I try to tell them, hey, look, I'm the generalist. I'm here to observe and report. If I observe something that I think needs additional attention, yes, it'll be on the report. It could be just a repair and a maintenance item. If it's something major, a bunch of windows, the seals are broken and they're fogged up. So that's kind of a major concern. Foundation's major concern, things like that. So
yeah, that's true. And so I try to refer it out, and they'll ask like, well, how do I fix this? How are they going to fix this? And it's like, well, there's several options on how they could approach it, but I'm also not in that industry, and so there might be new tips and tricks and new approaches that I'm not aware of. I would hate to tell them how to do their job but all I can say is that this is a defect. This does need to get repaired, and,
right.
And like, I was like, and they're like, well, how much is like, well, I'm not the one fixing it. So I can't tell you, like, I can't quote what they would charge to fix it. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's like, so sometimes I'll venture out on a limb and say, hey, this is more like hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. Or this is thousands of dollars, typically not tens of thousands of dollars, and try to, because if it's like a water heater, it's like, well, what's a water heater going to cost to replace? Well, there's some variables in here,
$1,000 to $1,500 to $2,000. That's
what I always say. Between $1,000 and $2,000, there's some options, depending on what quality of water heater you're doing. And, there might be some things you want to make adjustments to. And, and I know that it's going to be $1,200 to $1,500, but I don't ever say that. It's like, between $1,000 and $2,000. And then they, when they get somebody out there and says it's $1,250, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's true. Sewer line repairs, replacements. It's like they might be able to repair it, but if they have to replace it, I don't know. I hate it when they put me in a corner like that.
Especially with sewer lines and all that. If they have to go out and excavate and dig, you could look at, tens of thousands at that point. And that's when I don't want to throw out a number then it turns into something that big. Then they come back to me and say, hey, you told me it won't only be this much. That's why I try to keep that out.
I try to dodge all that if possible.
Absolutely.
I try to dodge that as much as possible. Yeah. How do you like to navigate like end of lifespan, right? Like when you discover a furnace is at the end of its life or a water heater's beyond lifespan, how do you typically communicate that?
Just straight up. You just say, look, this hot water heater is, 40, 50 years old and it's at the end of its life.
50-year-old water heater.
The report. It will be on the report. And, we move on from there. I've seen quite a few in 1920s, 1930s houses. I've seen the old octopus furnaces.
Yeah.
That are still running, things like that. And they're pretty close to the end of its life. But, if it's still cranking strong and if it's still blowing hot air, keep going. Hot water heaters, if it's a super old Sears hot water heater, 60, 70 years old, it's still running, but how long is it going to run?
Yeah. I've seen a couple of those the old A.O. Smith ones, and right. And that thing was made in like the 80s, and it's still cranking. You're like, hey, this is, I don't know what to tell you, this thing is, the water's hot. It's not leaking. Everything seems to be going good. I said, this thing might, it should have died a long time ago, but it's still cranking. So I don't know, man. You have like, is the whatever furnace. I use this illustration all the time. I had this Toyota Tacoma pickup truck and from the 90s.
One in my garage.
It had 260,000 miles on it. And every time I turned the key, it started and never gave me any problems. Changed the oil, put fuel in it, do the regular basic maintenance. It always ran great. There was never any problems with it. and, an average car about 100, 150,000 miles, they kind of get done, they're starting to wear out and have some problems. But this Toyota Tacoma, every time I turned the key, it went 280,000 miles. I sold it. I probably shouldn't have. I probably should have kept the thing, and that thing is probably still roaming the streets of Albuquerque right now. And I tell people that all the time. And I'm like, listen, you apparently have the Toyota Tacoma of water heaters sitting here. This thing, but every time I turn it on, it goes. I said, one day you're going to have to replace it, and that day's not today, because it's cranking, and it might be next week.
Today it worked.
It's working. Yeah, absolutely. I saw a 1940s furnace at this house. It was built in the 1940s. It took me forever to figure out even how old it was. It was some brand I'd never heard of, and we had to do a lot of research to figure out what even the heck this thing was. But it cranked and it worked, and it was continuing to I was like, man, they just don't make them like they used to, and with that buyer, they're like, that thing's so old, and I was like, yeah, but I guarantee you, any of the stuff they're making today is not going to last this long. I mean, that thing was 80 years old and still was working, and I told him eventually, it's like, maybe that thing might never break. I don't really know. I said, I will tell you that the new ones are a whole lot more efficient. So your gas bill will probably go down a lot when you do upgrade it. But the thing's working strong today, and buyers are like, well, I want the seller to replace it. And it's like, well, it ain't broken, it's working. So it's,
I mean, and I put on reports. I did a house, 1888 in a town called Leadville. And the furnace, that is probably the second or third furnace in this big 3-story old Victorian home. A firefighter from New York City was buying it. And the furnace was just super old octopus furnace, but it was cranking. It was blowing hot air. We had that thing up to about 78 degrees. Wow. And outside there was 6 feet of snow on the ground. So this thing was just really, really cranking. And he asked me, well, how long is it going to last? Says, I don't know. It's working great today.
Yeah. Just make sure you have carbon monoxide detectors in the house, Yeah.
And exactly.
Yep. And that's what I always tell people. Make sure you got some carbon monoxide detectors in here, that's it, and you don't know how long these things will last. It is funny how some of the older stuff lasts a lot longer than the new stuff.
Well, it's like cars. It's like when they built Fords and Chevys, nothing against Fords and Chevys, but they're built to last 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
Because you're going to buy a new one. Yep. And you're going to get a new cell phone in 2 years. And
planned obsolescence now. They basically engineer it knowing that we want a shorter lifespan on it because that way you have to buy a new one,
Right. You're going to go buy a new one anyways because you want the latest and greatest.
Absolutely.
Toyota's just the opposite. I drive a Toyota. My wife drives a Toyota. Mm-hmm. I'm on my 4th. And I take them to several 100,000 miles before I get rid of them because they're great cars.
Yeah.
Great SUVs.
Yeah. Yep. My 1990s Toyota truck was awesome. It was a great truck. I loved it. It was a great vehicle. I've got a Ford diesel right now, and I like, it's a newer one, so time will tell. But I feel like the diesel trucks tend to last a little longer too.
My wife drives a 2009 Tacoma, 6-speed standard, and it's a great truck. It's an awesome truck.
Yeah. Do you drive a Toyota for your inspection business?
I do. I've got a plug-in hybrid RAV4.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. With the distance that you're driving, it makes sense to have that.
At the retreat. I drove it to the retreat.
Oh, that's right. I saw it there. That's right. You drove it all the way down and over to Texas. Yep. That's right. Yeah. That's excellent, man.
Great on gas. Absolutely awesome on gas.
Oh, yeah. I bet the mileage is incredible. Yeah. So what other ancillary services do you do?
I mean, I also do the solar inspections, and it's a separate report. I do well and water, sewer scopes.
Okay.
As soon as I'm off of here, I'm going to do a mold inspection.
Okay. Do you do radon testing?
I do not do radon testing as far as the 48-hour test. No.
Yep.
I'll do a little cursory test during the inspection, and I don't charge for it. And that's just, Colorado's just got some weird licensing requirements, so I don't charge for radon. Yeah,
that makes sense. I was going to say some states have more licensing or less licensing around radon, and then Colorado, I knew had they have a higher standard there.
Yeah, and it's a lot of money to get the license, a lot of money to keep your equipment calibrated. Yep. And I don't always do it, but if they ask if they want me to do just a little cursory radon during the inspection, I'll plug in my little tester and let it run. And a lot of times the levels will come in super low, levels will come in really high. Then we get it retested by a licensed mitigator or licensed company.
Nice. Yeah. So if you get like a higher one, then you're like, yeah, well, this is showing some higher signs and you should probably get this done.
Should probably have it retested and have a, licensed company come in. Obviously do the sewer scope.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. So yeah, so we're doing all that stuff with the solar. Are you doing like the engineered like solar reports on that? What are you doing with when you say a solar inspection, what do you include with that?
Well, that's the one company that is out there called Spark.
As you're doing the Spark system?
I'm doing the Spark system test, and you get all the pictures, and it's a really good system. It's a really good report that you take all the pictures for them, you send it off to through their app, and then they generate the report and email it back to you within a day or two.
That's
so then
awesome.
The customer gets a good looking report. It's very informative. Tells them basically the lifespan of their solar system, if their batteries are still in good shape.
That's awesome. Yeah. And we're onboarding that exact system right now into our platform.
Corey is awesome. I really like the guy.
Yep.
Very helpful, responsive. If you have issues or, something went wrong, a lot of times if you're in areas like I get to areas middle of the mountains and I have no signal, that app doesn't work as well. So I'll take all the pictures, just my phone, come back to my house where I'm on Wi-Fi, plug them into his system, and then I might give Corey a call or send him an email saying, hey, give me a hand with this. He's super responsive.
That's awesome.
Really, really good to work with him and his company. So, yeah, I've been real pleased with it.
That's great. Yeah, we're in the middle of training right now. I think we've been doing the training system right now, getting our people trained up on it and adding that in as another option out here, like there's a lot of solar in the Southwest of the United States, lots of solar. In New Mexico, we get so much sun. It's something, and we don't get that much snow. We get a little bit, but not too much. And so solar is a great thing here. Same with Arizona, Southern California, Nevada, parts of Utah, even Colorado. Solar is something that is, I think it's great everywhere, but we get so much sun that I think it's a really great thing in this part of the country.
Yeah, we added it on our house last year.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. So we're doing that. And then, so doing what you're doing, like you're kind of in a rural area. And so you're driving a little bit more and, and the fact that you cover the whole state is pretty amazing. And the area that you're in, places like Breckenridge, Vail, these really high and very luxurious, like ski resort mountain towns, I bet you see some pretty impressive properties.
I do. I specialize in the luxury properties, the large multi-million-dollar homes and ranches, the large hunting properties.
Oh, yeah.
Specialize in, ski condos. And, I'll go in and I'll do a full hotel as a commercial inspection.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah. Well, man, Joe's been really good having you on the show and getting to hear your story and kind of hear like what you're doing out there. There might be people that have questions. Maybe there's other inspectors that are, trying to branch out in some of these areas you've already branched out in. If someone wants to get a hold of you, and what's the best way for someone to contact you?
Well, they can email me or look at my website. They can go onto my website and my email and phone number's on there. The website is High Country Inspectors with an S.com.
Okay. highcountryinspectors.com.
My phone number, if they're, I'm welcome to take phone calls all the time. It's 303-895-9542.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great having you here.
Well, Matt, thank you. It was good to meet you back in Texas for the first time, and it was really good to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great one.
Thanks, Matt.